Welcome everybody into the Sporting News Studio. I'm Stephen Levine with NASCAR Illustrated, sitting here with former All-Pro wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, Terance Mathis. But we ain't talking football.
No.
We're talking NASCAR of all things. Now, I know you went to high school in Georgia. Did you grow up in Georgia?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so was NASCAR part of your worldview when you were living in Georgia?
No, but you know, from the commercials of seeing Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty, you kind of knew that's what they were doing, running around these tracks. It was not even in my vocabulary at the time.
So how, when, and why did NASCAR become part of your consciousness?
When I left football, 2003 or so, I started a marketing company, a mobile marketing company. Then NASCAR, a couple of years later, started a diversity program. And we decided that maybe we can get into NASCAR and their diversity program as one of their urban marketing teams. And that's how pretty much I got started.
Did you get bit by the bug because of the business potential or because you appreciate it as a professional athlete from a competitive point of view?
It was the competitive nature.
Yeah.
You know, the strategy, the in and out, trying to win the thing, and getting the car just right, and testing, and all those things. That was very intriguing. But then when the business side came to it, you know, I was green, naive when I first started this thing. And honestly, I thought just because of who I am and what I did, you know, people were going to open their wallets up to you.
I'm Terance Mathis.
Yeah, but it didn't happen that way. After our last game at Savannah State, and came home, and I get an email from John Sands, and the email said, hey, you need to call this person with this team, which was Bob. And I called Bob, and we had a conversation. It lasted for about an hour, and we decided we were going to meet a couple of weeks later, and I drove up to Concord from Atlanta, and we sat there for about 3 or 4 hours, and we talked, and we hung out a little bit, and it just felt good.
Yeah.
It felt really, really good.
Now, you know, we talk about the urban demographic, and I think everybody thinks they know what that means, but define that for us so that I know that what I'm thinking is the same thing as what is. What is the urban demographic as you see it?
Well, the urban demographic is just not made up of African Americans. It's made up of Latinos. It's made up of white Americans. It's just an inner city feel, a way of doing things is just different. We know that Black America probably, out of any other race, spends more money in consumer goods than anybody in the country. And how do we get them to spend money? How do other companies come involved with us and they get to spend money on their consumer products? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to catch the urban community from that perspective, from the financial perspective. The urban community is trendy, from the skinny jeans with the high top shoes to the baggy pants to the hats with the wide brims to whatever it may be. Now it's changing a little bit. Now you got the shirt with the sweater vest and the tie and the jeans and the gym shoes. So it's changing.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because we always talk about one of the challenges to reaching that community is the fact that most NASCAR drivers don't look like the people who live in that community. I've often thought that another big challenge is the fact that every block you can find a basketball hoop, or you can go out into the street and throw a football around.
Right.
In an inner city environment, you're not necessarily going to find a go-kart track.
Right.
So how do you overcome that just sort of barrier and lack of familiarity with the sport itself?
Oh, you know, that's a good question. You know, the thing is that you just gotta oversaturate it with NASCAR. You gotta be in the city. You gotta be in the inner city schools, from elementary to high school. NASCAR jackets are sold more in the inner city than anywhere else.
I see them.
So I was at a school speaking one time, and I asked a kid, I said, do you know who the driver is of that car? Oh, no. I said, do you know the owner? No. Well, why do you have the jacket? Because it looks cool. So it's one of those things that, you know, you got to get in there, and that NASCAR symbol, that shield has to be visible.
Your driver is Scott Speed. How do you sell Scott Speed as the face to a sponsor who's courting the urban market?
You got to get them in front of them. You got to get them on talk shows. You got to get them on radio. You got to get them doing things. You got to even get them in sitcoms, black sitcoms, as cameos or whatsoever. You have to do those things. You got to get them in movies, in cameo in movies. Now everybody's saying, who's this guy that keep popping up? You know, what is he doing? And all of a sudden, oh, he's a NASCAR driver. Then flicking the channel on a Sunday and say, oh, let me see what Scott Speed is doing today. And now, before you know it, you got a household of people watching Scott Speed. You got the whole neighborhood, the whole community, and now you got the whole nation watching Scott Speed because of his appearances on urban radio, urban TV, urban shows, and just urban magazines. And now his face is out there. Now he's recognizable.